It was totally unique at the time.
It was definitely everybody's favorite show.
I couldn't understand why we were the only competition.
High school seems to be the age at which so many people seem to define their character.
Sometimes I love Zach, but then sometimes I hated Zach and I was going for Slater.
It was a show that people could let their kids watch and feel good about.
I could have told you that.
Full of drama, comedy, good old-fashioned entertainment.
What definitely was a template for teen television. We did invent teen television. The idea came from Brandon Todikoff, actually, not for the show, but for a show that would evolve into Saved by the Bell. And he was legendary president of NBC Entertainment, and he had come to me and said that they were losing the high end of their Saturday morning cartoon audience. And I was on the contract at NBC, and I said, well, what does that mean? And he said, well, those are the 10, 11, 12s. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, we would like you to do a live action comedy where the kids are the stars. Because if people don't remember, but there had never been a show before where the kids were the stars. I had a showrunner who was Bennett Tramer. Even on the original, he drove me nuts. We'd be in the control room and he'd one more take, you know? And finally in the editing room, I'd turn around, that's it, we're done.
Peter really pushed you to do your best, and he was as hard on himself as he was on all of us. And there might be, 10 jokes, 9 of them hit, 1 doesn't. Let's get that one right. Why shouldn't they all be funny? Or he would say a lot, here's your chance to be creative. This is how this is usually done. Try to find a different way. We've seen the kids, take the parents' car a million times. Find another way to do it. Find another way to do a crush. Do a crush on a teacher differently. Oh, we had a lot of fantasies in those early shows too, with little pink borders. And what high school kid doesn't daydream? I think those fantasies where the girls fantasize marrying the teacher they have a crush on, that's a very real thing. We actually showed it.
Everyone who worked on those shows had this passion. A lot of the writers could have gone on to some of the bigger primetime shows, and they just had a passion for this teen genre.
We had screaming audiences. It was amazing. We just had kids and people and families screaming. Sometimes it would be frustrating as a writer because you would write a line that they're gonna ooh and ah over, and they oohed and ahhed, and the kids just ate it up, and you didn't want them to ooh and ah so much.
There was always a strong sense of morality that Peter put in the shows consciously, and the staff, and the writing staff had that sense of bonding too, but basically it was a sense of that morally things always work out. So they deal with the things the kids were really dealing with. Sometimes they were controversial things like, Jesse taking speed, but ultimately the morality came into play, and they were moral plays, which people want to be told.
I started it by cutting school. I could have stopped it, but beating Eric was more important to me.
It's utopian, really. It's like, what would high school be like where everybody basically kind of loved each other and the kids were in charge? But then on some level, people see it as feel it is kind of realistic, that they learned things from it, like what will it be like the first time I kiss somebody, or what bad thing would happen to you if you stole something or lied to somebody. These are often very simple moral lessons going on, but the situations are so based in kind of the mundane realities of adolescent life that it has this almost instructional role for kids.
Fake IDs? That's wrong. That's immoral. That's dishonest. That's cool. I want one of those.
We didn't know the audience we had, which we were going to have, which was a 12 to 17 tween and teen audience. No one had measured that before. So we at the beginning were just trying to increase the age level from 9, 10, 11, 12. Research said no one would watch the show, and there were all kinds of battles going on about this. When we went on the air, we were on the air about 4 weeks, and we found out that 50% of every teenage girl in America was watching Saved by the Bell. and that we had discovered we had more teens watching Saved by the Bell on Saturday morning than the #1 show in television, which was the Bill Cosby show.
I was pretty religious about watching Saved by the Bell, just because I was kind of going through, since I was kind of transitioning between elementary and junior high, even though that was I think that was set in high school. It was just all the things that they were going through in school were kind of all the things that we were going through.
I remember growing up watching them, probably starting when I was in my early teens. Loved all the characters, got into it right away, able to relate to all of them. In fact, I idolize, I think, each and every one of them in a different and unique way.
Watching the show, Saturday mornings when I was a kid, I don't remember what age I was because I just know it was the 80s, but I really, really, really knew the show well in syndication because when I was in junior high, they showed it 4 times a day starting at 4 o'clock on TBS. And me and my best friend would sit on the phone for those few hours and talk about in between each episode, in between every commercial. Oh my God, did you see what happened? Oh my God, this is the episode. Oh my God, I love this episode.
There's this incredible spread of ages of people who either were watching the show as young kids thinking, I'm going to be going to high school someday and what's it going to be like? Or kids who were actually in high school around the time that it came out and thinking, what's this going to be like? And who will actually say things to me like, I learned a lot about going to college, I learned a lot about the decisions that you approach in high school that affect the rest of your life, those kinds of things.
My office, now.
Congress eventually cited Saved by the Bell as one of the example shows. And basically the idea of it was it imparted moral messages and allowed kids to deal with these situations that they were facing that the culture wasn't saying. Kids were facing pressure to do one thing or do the other, whether it was to make out with a boy or, the dating pressures and the social peer pressures. And this was the first show that kind of really addressed it for a generation.
Before the 3-hour ruling on children's programming, the FCC had written into the congressional record, like 1990, about quality children's programming, and they used several examples. They used Fat Albert, they used Saved by the Bell in role modeling, and we were doing morality plays. And obviously, if no one does anything wrong, you can't have a morality play. And we were doing morality plays, and in the final analysis, at the end of the day, after all the scheming and all the conning and all the avoidance of what it was they had to do. At the end of the day, in the final analysis, kids always made the right decision and did the right thing.
You did the right thing. I am very proud of you guys.
The writing staff, most of us were parents. And we realized a lot of kids are going to be watching this show, and you really felt you don't want to be irresponsible because we have our kids too, and they watch it. So there's a real feeling, and Peter had the 3 kids. As parents, there was a real feeling of responsibility then, to do something. And we had an educational advisor on some of the shows, Dr. Karen Hill-Scott, in the later seasons, who would also give us advice about making sure the message was clear to kids and not sending the wrong message.
It is amazing the effect on a generation which grew up. And maybe when they were latchkey kids, they learned a lot of their values, just like people before them will watch shows of Andy Griffith and go, oh, that's how you're supposed to treat people. We don't live in a small town, but that's what it must feel like. People watch Saved by the Bell, and even if they were living and their 2 parents were working or they had divorced parents, they'd watch that show and they'd know, oh yeah, that's how I should treat my friend, or that's why I should stay away from drugs because Jesse got it hooked on them.
The show was written not really by committee, which means by the entire staff, but we would work the show out by committee. So in other words, we would break the stories down, and then we had this grease board, this board in the writer's room that we would write word by word almost what happens in every scene and in every act, and eventually we'd have a 10-page outline that we would then give to the writer to go off and write.
It's really hard writing comedy. Once you're writing for adults, I think a joke that a 21-year-old will get, a 51-year-old will get. But when you're writing humor that has to appeal to kids in like 3rd or 4th grade, and also kids in 12th grade, it's really a challenge to get a joke that doesn't seem over the heads of a 8-year-old, but too childish for a 17 or 18-year-old.
Hey, we all put pants on one leg at a time.
We do?
Everybody was really the butt of the joke on Saved by the Bell. You know, it was very democratic that way. Like the characters would take turns looking foolish, have little, you know, moments of egotism that were made fun of or whatever. And so I think that made people feel this tremendous affection for the characters.
We cast the show colorblind. I mean, Lisa Turtle was supposed to be a Jewish American princess from Long Island who moved to California. And what happened was they introduced me to Log Voorhees just to see for an episode down the line. I said, have her read. And they said, have her read for what? I said, have her read for Lisa Turtle. And they said, well, she's not black. And I said, well, she is now. And she was. And same thing with Mario Lopez. I mean, Slater was supposed to kind of be a John Travolta, Vinnie Barbarino type. And we weren't pleased. And I remember calling the casting director one night and said, where is it written that Slater has to be Anglo? Why don't we open our tent? Why don't we look at Latinos? Why don't we look at Asians? Why don't we look at African Americans? And 2 days later, she called me, I found Slater. We made the choice because of the actors and actresses themselves. They culturally were no different. Mario was really no different than Mark Paul in far as his cultural preferences.
They were the age of the kids they were playing, which I think is another maybe secret to the success. Because some of these shows you'll see like they're about high school and the kids look like they're 35 years old. These kids really were the ages they were playing. Dustin was a year or two younger and Elizabeth was a year or two older, but they were still basically within the range. So when you see the kids growing from freshmen in high school to seniors, which is what the original class covered, that's the age these kids were at. I mean, they were 13 to 17 or 18 when they were doing this show, and I think you can just feel that.
The actors, the kids were great, okay, and they were tremendously professional for their age, but they were only 14, you know, and 15, so you were totally involved with their lives. Screech was only 11, so I misread his date of birth. And I remember saying to Mark Paul Gosselaar, like the third episode, what's with Dustin Diamond? He acts like such a kid. He said, well, he's only 11. And I said, he's only 11? I never would have hired him if I knew he was 11.
Men are such fools. I hope I never become one.
Saved by the Bell has really been an evergreen. Each generation discovers it and finds some sort of truth in it that even if it's silly to some people, it means something to so many more. And sometimes both at the same time.
We shot every one of them, especially Saved by the Bell, as though it was the first one or the last one. It was never, oh, this is our 89th episode, you know, it's good enough. No, we never did that. That's probably why it was so successful.
It was a phenomenon, and I think it continues to be a phenomenon, and don't ask me exactly why.
Maybe at NBC we should do a sitcom about a school principal and his kids. Really? Nah, it'll never work.
I think that was kind of the genius of the show, that it took these very banal issues of everyday life for somebody in high school and based an entire episode around them.
All these people really believed in this show. They really loved it. You see the executives sitting there and they'd break up at all the jokes and tear up when together were breaking up.
Every good television show is really a family, and you could feel how both on and off screen these people cared about each other, and it was really, that's what I think connected up, is that people felt that sense of family about it.
Oh, it really is absolutely so gratifying to meet somebody who is so affected by Saved by the Bell. I mean, it's really makes you feel, okay, I gave one back, or I did something beyond just television.